Hey, this is Sky. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So today let's talk about being sober. I went sober, stopped drinking February 13th, 2000, so that's 21 years ago. I didn't hit rock bottom. It was a liver problem. I was sick, really sick. And the doctors told me straight up that the party's over. If you continue drinking, you're going to have a liver transplant, and it could get worse from there. You could die. So that was the hardest thing I ever had to do, was to stop drinking. It would have been easier for me if I had lost all my friends and had some sort of intervention like you see on TV, and I'm, sent to rehab and all that. I just had to stop doctor's orders. And I was a full-blown alcoholic, drinking a case of beer a day. I would follow the case of beer up with usually a big jug of wine, those big gallon jugs. I'd get one of those Carlos Rossi or Livingston wine up at the grocery store. It'd be $8 or $10, and I'd drink that. So I was just pounding a lot of alcohol every single day and drank myself into a liver problem. My liver was swollen. When they did the ultrasound, I went into the hospital. It was swollen and black, the size of a 350-pound man, and I had a pretty thin frame. It was completely self-inflicted. I didn't really notice the change in myself at first. Going sober for me was all in one day. I had no relapses. Since February 13th, 2000, I've never had a single sip, not even a drop of alcohol. And I had drank heavily every day for more than 15 years. It was my lifestyle. My entire life revolved around drinking. All my friends drank. I hung out at the bar 7 nights a week if I could afford it. I would drink alone. That didn't stop me. I always had to have a drink. If I went on vacation, anywhere, it's my main priority. And as I healed, because I really was sick, both mentally and physically, I started to change. It's taken me a long time to really recognize that change, and recognizing the change that I went through has really been the driving force to keeping me sober. I'll never go back to who I was, no matter how much I miss the party. And I'm no longer the life of the party. I'm not even at the party. And I miss that sometimes. Because sometimes it gets lonely being sober. I know very few people, even to this day, very few, who don't drink. Most people drink. I don't do AA or NA. I went to one meeting and it was hilarious, and I'll make a whole other video about that. I won't get into it, but that community really wasn't for me. It just seemed like a bunch of weak little weirdos, addicted to coffee and cigarettes and other vices, sex and other vices, trying to replace whatever they could with the reason why they were in NA or AA. Going to these meetings every day, sometimes, twice a day, crying and whining about their war stories. And I just didn't feel like it was a positive environment for me. I do understand the value of that for some weak people. I didn't feel that weak. So I chose to do this all on my own. I had no support. I didn't have friends that were like, okay, well, we're behind you. Whatever you decide is right. No way. Absolutely not. I had friends that were conspiracy theorists with even the term alcoholism. Like it's just some bullshit that doctors made up and they put on you. You don't have that. Are you kidding me? I'll show you the fucking pictures of my liver, dude. Doctors told me I'm going to die. Fuck that shit. I had friends tell me I was dead to them. That's a direct quote. One of my buddies said, "Oh, you're dead to us now." So it was a lonely path. People get offended when you have to stop drinking. They get offended. As if it's somehow, because they recognize the failures and the flaws within themselves. And when one of the group drops out, they feel, well, you think you're better than us? You're no fun anymore. They come up with all these excuses like it's my goddamn fault. I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to. If I had never had a liver problem, I'd still be drinking to this very day. I'd be that old person. So it was this progression of healing that helped me to realize who the new me was. I had to recreate myself. Because there really wasn't a before time. It's not like you just snap back to who you were before you started drinking. I started drinking as a teenager. And I was into heavy drugs. smoking PCP all the time, doing crack, all kinds of stuff. I mean, it wasn't just drinking for me. So there was no before time. And all of a sudden, as an adult, 28 or 30 years old, I had to stop drinking. So I couldn't just revert back to this old person that I used to be. I had to recreate a new version of myself. And as I did that, I really started to realize that there's no going back from this and that I would never want to. If I had the opportunity now and the doctors said, oh, well, we have technology now where you can just drink all you want, become a complete full-blown alcoholic, and your liver will never get fucked up, or, just take this medicine, you'll be fine, and you can do whatever you want. Whatever the fantasy scenario is, right? I wouldn't go back to who I was because the alcohol was infecting my brain. I was getting organic poisoning. They say that anybody who uses a chemical substance like alcohol or chemical drugs, I don't think it really counts for weed, but definitely cocaine and things like that, you get organic poisoning and your brain chemistry changes. The cellular structure of your brain changes, of your body changes. You change into a different person. You can become demented and weird. One of the things that I really realized that was a flaw when I was a complete drunk was my attachment to my emotions, how emotional I could become, especially how angry I could get, how depressed I could get, how I can convince myself into the worst relationships, into the worst friendships, into the worst scenarios, the worst behavior. I could convince myself into it. And when I was sober the next day, I'd just kind of shrug it off and be like, it's the beer, it's the drinking. It was just the party the other night, whatever. And then you just forget about it the next day when you start getting fucked up all over again. My friendships became less. I had less friends when I went sober. And that was a drag. I didn't really realize that was going to happen. Maybe in AA they warn you about this. I did this on my own, so I didn't know that was going to happen, and it was tough for me. But I realized that those people weren't really my friends. They were just medication buddies, people that were depressed and having a shitty time in life, having a hard time with survival. Being sober was torture to them. Thinking, same with me, being lost in your head with those thoughts when you're sober was torture, so you get fucked up. And the people that you surround yourself with, that I surrounded myself with, they felt like that they were my brothers, my bros, my ride or dies. They weren't. Not at all. So my relationships got less when I went sober, but they got tighter. I started to meet people that really liked me for me, and not just because I was the life of the party, or because I was at the party, or because I was sharing the same substance and the same feeling as they were. When I used to do crack out in the streets and in the alleyways with bums, you sit down and start smoking rocks with just somebody you don't even know. Could be somebody that you went and you saw at the crack house that you were hooking up with. The next thing you know, you're smoking rocks with them out in the fucking alleyway in between the dumpsters. And for that moment, you guys are little party buddies. You guys are cool. Those aren't friends. And it's the same way when you're a drunk. It's not that extreme. Being a crackhead is rather an extreme existence. I thank God that I'm not there anymore. But being a drunk at the bar, just with your drunk buddies, it's the same. It's a shallow type of relationship. So my relationships got better. My connection to myself got stronger. I started to dive inside into a mind, body, and soul lifestyle, and I started to read more. I started to exercise more. I started to, become more of a positive person, having more even keel. The waters didn't seem as choppy. I wasn't on such an emotional roller coaster ride. The things that would set me off and I would just be like a light switch going crazy would no longer do that to me. So I enjoy who I am more being sober, and I would never go back, not even if I had a genie in the bottle that gave me the super X-Men powers of doing whatever I wanted and it would never affect me. I'm not going back to that person because I'm happy with who I've become. Being a strong person, having a positive mindset, having mental strength. It all goes together, and that comes from daily practice. It builds up. Like being at the gym, you don't get big in your first session. It takes you months, years to get into the shape that you want to get. Losing weight can be the same thing. You don't just lose weight through going for one jog. You got to jog every day for years in order to lose that weight. It takes a while. But once you become the new version of you, the healthier version of you, and you can see more clearly, see yourself more humbly, it's really an enlightening experience. And I can say for the first time, not just today, but being sober, I could say for the first time that I actually like who I am, and I never did before. I never liked who I was. I settled for who I was. This is me. I'm a product of the streets, a product of my past, a product of abuse. Take me or leave me. I was kind of just forcing myself on the world in that way. Constantly in this fuck the world mode. I'm no longer like that. And any kind of problems that I have now, instead of running from them through vice, and when you get drunk, you become such a shallow, weak person because you're never attacking your problems. Now, when I have problems, and I've gone through a hard year, last year in 2020 was an incredibly hard year for me. And instead of reverting back to who I used to be and running from those problems, I attack them like a warrior. And it's a battle. It's not easy. But I have the mental strength in order to do it now. I'm not going to make this video to try to convince anybody to go sober. It's a personal decision. You got to decide what's best for you. When I chose to go sober, because it was a choice, even though the doctor said you got to, I could have just continued. Killed myself. A slow death. It's different than putting a gun in your mouth. The drinking yourself to death because of liver problem is just a slow death. But I would have experienced more and more health problems and just gone down the road of bitterness and anger, hopelessness and despair and depression. Now when I have those things arise in me, because sometimes I get awfully depressed, sometimes I can feel hopeless and feel weak, and now I dive into that. I have such an amazing amount of discipline now. Daily discipline equals a happy life. Meeting struggle is how you reach greatness. On the other side of struggle is greatness. When I was drinking, I wasn't meeting any struggle. My mind wasn't developing. I was locked in as kind of like an overgrown teenager. And now I've finally been able to, in this last 20 years, been able to mature into a man. People have a false sense of manhood, what they think it means to be a man. Just because you can show up to work every day doesn't mean you're a man. Or an adult, I should say, because if you're a woman, you could be watching this video. To be an adult and a high-functioning member of society rather than a drag on everybody around you. It takes work. Those are stairs. It's not a slope that you just sled down. When you're drunk all the time, you may feel, especially since I was a functioning drunk, I was still able to go to work and to do my thing. I was just killing myself. I didn't see any of this. I would have just figured, I'm okay. Everything's cool. It wasn't until I started to heal that I realized that that old person was unacceptable. I can't tolerate who that old person was. And it's helped me to move forward into the future in ways, in business, in relationships, in every way of my life. I own a great home now with a pool. I left the ghetto. I got rid of the shithead friends I used to hang out with. None of that would have happened. None of it. I've been in a bunch of magazines because of Sinister. None of it would have happened. none of it, if I didn't go sober. I was able to start attacking my problems and conquering my weaknesses and achieving my goals. So it's just all stuff to think about. If you're lost in addiction, you can change your life in one day. I did. February 13th, 2000. That was the day I changed my life. Thanks for watching.